Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. You guys believe it's already December? Like, it's crazy. Our house is like all Christmas-fied and everything already. It's like, how is it here? All right. Serving as your board president this year has been an honor. In January, I'll hand the gavel over to our next president and step into my final year on the executive committee as our immediate past president, a role I'm very excited to take on. This year has been especially meaningful. We made a deliberate effort to expand our reach beyond Santa Rosa and ensure our membership meetings reflected the full breadth and diversity of our beautiful county. We strengthened regional engagement and delivered high-value programming that showcased the leaders, the issues, and the opportunities shaping Sonoma County today. Our municipal forums featured city managers and mayors from across the county, timely updates from our county supervisors, community safety presentation and Q&A featuring our top law enforcement leaders from across the region. We hosted expert briefings from key regional organizations including Sonoma Marin Area Rail Transit, Sonoma Clean Power, the Potter Valley Project and the Eel River Diversion Project, workforce development representation from the SRJC, CTE, and Sonoma State University. We're also honored to provide an AI-focused presentation from Professor John Solons of Sonoma State University, helping our members stay informed on emerging technologies that impact local businesses and policy, and of course today's presentation on building forward development momentum in Sonoma County. We kicked off the year with an outstanding economic update from Dr. Eiler. You guys like Dr. Eiler's update every year? It's really good. It's like, I love it. He is the professor of economics at Sonoma State University who delivered a deep insight into the state of our economy. And you won't want to miss out on his annual update on January 7th, so mark your calendars and don't miss it. Be here. It was an honor to help guide this organization through its 50th anniversary. If you see anybody wearing one of these pins, that means that they were one of the first 50 presidents of the organization. And being entrusted with celebrating that milestone was a privilege and truly an honor. After 50 years, that culture of partnership remains at the heart of this organization. We had live music, we had great people, good food, we had awards, more to come on that in a minute. And so goes the saying, good times were had by all. Special thanks to I and our celebration committee for helping throw that party. Finally, we went through a complete rebrand. We got a new logo, we got a new name, we got a new website, and we became a better us. It takes a lot of people to make the Alliance strong. I want to give a few shout outs. Don Mills from Sound Ideas Media, who films every program. Why don't you give us a wave? Thank you, Don. Our sustaining members who make all of these membership meetings possible, and each one of you that show up each and every month. Thank you for your contributions. It's been my pleasure to stand on the stage and represent you. It's been an honor, one that I don't take lightly, especially knowing so many of the previous presidents and who they are. Last month's anniversary celebration was another reminder of how many remarkable people have shaped this organization. We shared the stage with pillars of our alliance, with Kathy, Scott, Mick, Dick, Marlene, Kimberly, Ross. And if you missed it, maybe you've been seeing a few of the photos cycling behind me on these screens while we've been eating. But better yet, our friend Don Mills and his team made a beautiful video for us to watch if we missed it.
Welcome to the 50th anniversary celebration of our Sonoma County Business Alliance. 50 years in the making. It's incredible to look around this room and see so many leaders, so many partners, people who have helped shape this organization over the last 5 decades.
The Alliance came about because it was all around Warm Springs Dam. And Harry said, why don't you take the water to the geysers? He said, are you crazy?
To work with the folks that have led this community is so very, very important.
I think that we played the game very well in that we knew that SCA and what we did and believing in business and sharing our lives with our other business organizations was totally where we needed to be and to stand up for this community and these small businesses that make us who we are.
We got a lot done. Our voice was always heard. The newspaper never really understood us, but they always printed our name. And so we're in the room, we're present, and we still are today, and we're going to keep doing that.
I was 28 when I took this job, and I thought, how am I going to lead an organization like this? Like, I'm in way over my head, and it took me a little bit. But I realized, it's you guys. It's the members. It's your voices that I'm here to elevate.
And I look around the room and I see all the people that are so committed to this community and their tireless efforts in trying to make us a better place.
And the guys on the board warned me that I might not get along with a woman from Healdsburg. Little did they know, Lisa and I hit it off from day one, and together we helped reshape what had been a bit of the good old boys board.
This organization has done in my lifetime with this organization is really help the economies of our region.
We're here celebrating our past 50 years, but we got to get what our leadership is like right now. It's next generation. I mean, holy shit, they're doing things that I can't imagine, you know? And yeah.
Rough year. Thank you so much. I'm so honored for this. And by the way, second album.
Thank you for being part of our story. And if you'll lift your glass, I would like to go ahead and say, cheers to the next 50 years. And the bigger.
Thank you, Don Will. Thank you. I mean, if you look around the room, look at how full this room is. We are all people that care about our community, our county, advocacy, our businesses and organizations. It is really, really an honor to be in a room with each and every one of you guys. But if you're feeling a bit of FOMO for not attending that event, you're in luck, because we're going to have a little bit of that event right here, right now, today. So, although he couldn't attend the celebration, we want to make sure we honor our final 2025 Legacy Award recipient. This award recognizes individuals whose leadership and service have left a lasting mark. People who built pathways that will allow our work to continue another 50 years. Today we are very, very proud to honor Dennis Harder. Yeah, that's right. Let's give it to Dennis. Dennis has been a steady and thoughtful advocate for our county, a champion of sustainable growth, responsible planning, and civic engagement. For decades, he has represented the Sonoma County Alliance on the SCTA Citizens Advisory Committee, ensuring that business voices, community organizations, and conservation partners are all represented in regional transportation and land use decisions. His work has shaped policy in ways that balance progress with community well-being. His insight and dedication have strengthened partnerships across sectors and supported a stronger, more connected Sonoma County. Dennis truly embodies the spirit of this award, so please join me in recognizing our Legacy Award recipient, Dennis Harder. He was so humble. He was going to sit there and then realize he had to stand up. And then I had to wave him up here to come get his trophy. Like, come on. We love you, Dennis.
Hey, Dennis, I was really hoping you'd be able to see the fun photos that Lisa provided. And so I put this one on there for you.
I think I still have the tie.
No.
Should have told you to wear it. Thank you.
Okay, and now my favorite part. I'm going to pass this over to Ty Mooney, our Executive Director.
All right. Good morning. Oh, you can hold those applause. It's okay. All right. Hello. I feel like last month I saw you guys multiple times and I'm exhausted, but I'm glad to see you again. I feel reinvigorated. So we got to celebrate our 50th, and I want to highlight a few things. First of all, that event was down the pipeline from when I took this job, and let me tell you, I was dreading it. I was looking at this event and 50 years of hard work and effort from all the people in this room, thinking, how am I ever going to recognize and honor that with 3 years of experience in this role and a lot to learn? And so I'm so glad that we were able to do it, and I'm so grateful for the people that helped make it successful. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Samantha. I saw you here today, and Danny. You guys rock. We were up there setting up, and let me tell you, I learned I do not have the skill of decorating, but Samantha does. So thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Danny, for helping with that. To our awesome MC, Ryan, thank you for helping make that event shine. For all of our sponsors that showed up in support, that got tables, thank you so much. And for all of our members, the 50 years that we just had, that was you guys. That's what we're celebrating is you, those milestones that you created. So thank you for that too. So a round of applause for all of that. My personal favorite part was really seeing the 4 EDs on the stage. It was like a little time capsule, a little treasure box that unlocked new pieces of history that I didn't even know. So if you get the opportunity to watch the video, the full-length video is going to be on our website. It's worth a watch. You're going to learn a lot and hear from some incredible people. So thank you, Dawn, for capturing that. And Dennis, congratulations. We didn't get to celebrate you that night, but thank you for all the work you did. You made an impact on the community, our organization, and the county, and we're so grateful. One more round of applause for Dennis. All right, now for the business side of things. We have a few deadlines coming up, and I have QR codes I'm going to put on your table so they're hot and ready as we do self-introductions. Board applications are going to be due this Friday. If you're interested, please put an application in. Our nomination committee meets the following Monday, so it's important that you're on time. So on the Friday they're due. It says Wednesday. Ignore that. Prepaid program. We do the offer of the lowest rate at $35 program. You have to buy it all in advance, and you could send someone else if you can't make it. So get the lowest rate for next year locked in. You could buy your prepaid program today. So the QR codes are also going to be on your table as I pass them out. They're available on our website as well. So if you're a member, consider doing that and get the lowest rate for our first program on the 7th with Eiler. And that's my last notification is join us on the 7th because we have Dr. Robert Eiler coming again. All right, and then the last QR code you're going to see on the strip that I'm going to leave on the table is an end of the year member survey. It's 4 questions. There's no excuses. I want to hear your voice. I want to hear what you want to see next year. So please fill that out. It should be pretty quick, and I would be very grateful. And with that, I'm going to welcome our program sponsor, North Coast Builders Exchange.
Thank you, and I have my watch because when I used to run this organization, I used to have almost a heart attack and people went over 3 minutes. So you will not see me for more than 3 minutes up here. That is the deal. I'm Lisa Whitkey-Schaffner, and I get to run the North Coast Builder Exchange. I'm about 4 years in, and before I start about Builder Exchange, I want to tell you thank you for being in this room. You heard me on that. I've been talking the same talk for 20 years. The business organizations in this community are so important. This organization, I know the Farm Bureau is here, your chambers, that is economic development, and we help behind the scenes of all of you and your businesses, so please support your local business organizations. We at the North Coast Builder Exchange are the Construction Trade Association, and we do 3 things, only 3 things. We do them well, always room for improvement, but I think we do them well. We do member services, so anyone in the construction industry, any of our affiliates or vendors, anyone that wants to be involved with the construction industry, we have an online plan room, we do workers' comp, we have insurance for them, we have seminars, anything our businesses need. We have a new partnership with SCORE, so if you have a person trying to build a construction business, we now can help them do that. And frankly, we answer any question you need. People call us with the craziest questions about remodeling their closets. So just know that there is a place that you can have that information, and people call us. We are Sonoma, Napa, Lake, and Mendo. So we work very hard in our region to figure out the needs in construction. And if you think about those 4 counties, they are very different counties. I do not drive across the borders of those counties and not think about where I am and what the needs are. So member services, number 2, and the part that people love and I love is workforce development. So North Bay Construction Corps, we do teacher grants, and the teachers do not have to get a PO through their district. They actually go right down to our local building supply houses, like I know Need Clark's in the room, Kelseyville Lumber, Mendo Mill, Hillsburg Lumber, and buy what they need, because it can be very difficult for our teachers in the trades to even get nails, believe it or not. And then this last year we bought the contractors licensing courses. So now we figured out the other gap that's so important is that we don't have people getting their licenses. We don't have enough people coming into the industry. So between our high school program, North Bay Construction Corps, and then the other end, getting people their licenses, we feel like we are trying to help the construction industry. The third thing, and I'm almost done, is advocacy. I don't need to say much about that. That is why you are all here. We do things from spending a lot of time with Gabe and Scott, hopefully mostly good stuff. Not every day, but I also, see, there you go, I'm done. But I will say, because I have to say it, if you have an issue in those 4 counties, please do call us, because that is what we want to do. We want to be talking to those government agencies and not having you do it. Thank you.
All right, we're gonna do some self-introductions, and we're gonna do it a little differently today. All right, I brought 2 remotes, and I don't know which one's which right now. Not that one. So we're gonna do self-introductions a little differently today. There's going to be no monologues, no good mornings, no special announcements. It's gonna be quick, and the whole room is authorized to go, if someone says anything outside of name and business. Yeah? So example, Ty Mooney, Business Alliance Sonoma County. All right, Ryan, kick us off.
Ryan Kelly, WSI Smart Marketing. My guest, Dave McDonald, go ahead and stand up, from UBEO Business Services.
Hugh Futrell Court.
Gabe Osborne, City of Santa Rosa.
Scott Orr, Permit Sonoma.
Everyone's avoiding the shame at 7 a.m.
Callie Bass-Seibel, Sonoma County Tourism.
Claudia Vecchio, Sonoma County Tourism, and we have some guests here today. We have Joe Bartlemay from the Farmhouse Inn, Brian Markey from Doubletree Hotels in Rhoda Park, Scott Alonso with Chris Rogers' office. Oh, and Margaret Graham from Timber Cove. There's a member.
In that case, I'll stand up. Therapy Taro, Sonoma Coast Living, Real Estate, and Bodega Bay and Beyond, Vacation Home Rentals, 33 years.
Damon Girardelli, Sonoma County Farm Bureau.
Todd Lance, Mayor of Cloverdale.
Sonia Big Barwick, Generation Housing.
I like that accountability, guys. Let's hype it up more.
Dave Coach, Coach Construction, over 50 years worth.
Guys, come on, wake up.
Nick Dexter, Leduc and Dexter Plumbing and Super Service Plumbing.
Artie Dexter, Leduc and Dexter and Super Service Plumbing.
Good morning, Dick Dowd, retired.
Mark Soylent Materials.
John Rudolph, PCD Audio Visual Contractors.
Ryan Gleason, Belgian Race. Andre Moran, Belgian Race, and Board of United Way of the Wine Country.
Nick Fry, Belletta Vineyards.
Ryan Buxbaum, Next One Staffing.
Pete Lescure, Lescure Engineers.
Corey McCormick, Holly Construction.
Joe Gaffney, St. Vincent de Paul.
Chris Wilson, past president.
Steve Bertelbaugh with Friends of Smart, and I have my daughter here, Leslie Hubbard.
Johnny Weston, Sonoma County Tourism.
Mike is passing like a hot potato, guys.
Kathy Goodacre, consultant, advisor, and coach.
Jendo Rosario, Schools Rural Sonoma County Office of Education.
Rick Carlisle, BKF Engineers.
Ryan Long, Connective Outreach.
Tom Schwedden, TZS Consulting. John Cregan, Santa Rosa Chief of Police.
Jeff Scott, Mead Clark Lumber.
Lisa McKee Schaffner, North Coast Builder Exchange.
Nicolette Weinsvig, North Coast Builders Exchange.
Dan Rosacci with the Round Barn Group at Morgan Stanley.
Gary Lentz, Loan Depot Home Mortgage, and I have a guest this morning, my good friend Tom Bieri, who is the Executive Director of Community Support Network, which offers supportive housing to at-risk adults. Welcome, Tom.
Christina Hollingsworth, Dearwood, Burco, Millar, and also the Board of Community Foundations, Sonoma County.
Lori Rodriguez, Dearwood, Brooklyn, Millar.
Katie Dillwood, Christofferson Builders.
Harry Coffey, Chairman, Pep Housing.
Madeline Keegan O'Connell, YWCA, Sonoma County.
Rob Sandville, KLH Consulting.
Lori Mooney, North Bay Biz Magazine.
Jamie Agathon, Sonoma Clean Power.
Danny Sheehan Meyer, and I'm with the Friends of Smart.
Nick Caston, Financial Prodigy Inc. and Santa Rosa City School Board.
Diva Proto, Sonoma County Clerk, Recorder, Assessor, and I have two guests, Rhiannon Yeager, Chief Deputy Assessor, and Amanda King, Chief Deputy Clerk Recorder.
I'm Mike Thompson, Calpine and Russian River Confluence.
Pierre Rote, Sonoma County Ag and Open Space District.
And if you are a guest today, on my way back, hold up your business card because we have some beer to raffle off.
Howard Dalton, past president, and lots of things. Dennis Harder, past president, lots of things.
Andrea D'Angelo, Argonaut Constructors.
Paul Donaldson, Argonaut Constructors, past president and chair of the Burbank Housing.
Kurt Nichols, retired, past president.
Kayla Frankie, Architecture and Development.
Mark Hale, Carlisle Macy.
Mark Nelson, Midstate Construction.
Ernest Berghoff, Berghoff Realty.
Judy Groverman Walker, JGW Events and Travel.
Larkin O'Leary, Common Ground Society, and I have a guest with me today, Jaime Delgado from Sustainable Living Builders.
Jen Kalini, Leap Solutions.
Jason Lee, Rosen School District and board member.
Conrad Fernandez, Fidelity National. Paul Schwartz, Corcoran Icon Properties, Commercial Real Estate.
Scott Kincaid, Facility Development Company and Chairman of SCA.
Mark Stapp, Sonoma State and Santa Rosa City Council.
Tawny Gisconi Event Management Solutions.
Jenny Douglas, Common Ground Society.
Jim Allen, Pep Housing.
Samantha Paul Planning Consulting, and Mark West Area Chamber of Commerce.
Kim O'Day with Fidelity National Title. Selena Laram, the Jones Museum of Sonoma County.
Dee Swanheiser, representing the Swanheiser family.
Aaron Smith with Adobe Associates.
Tim Schramm with Adobe Associates.
Casey Talbot, Adobe Associates.
Steve Click, Bauer Associates, and President of the Board of Sonoma County Fire District.
Marcella Piedra with the City of Romer Park.
Troop Agent, ZFA Structural Engineers, and member of the Santa Rosa Design and Preservation Board.
Marlene Soyland, Soyland Management.
Linda Bone, Summit State Bank.
Brett Shields, ZFA Structural Engineers.
Carl Service, TLCD Architecture.
Eric Schmies, Golden State Lumber.
Todd Mendoza, W Commercial, and I have 3 guests. Steven Skinner, W Commercial Real Estate. Cooper Fox, W Commercial Real Estate. Caden Rolay, W Commercial.
Kevin Jones, Fast Stop of Santa Rosa, United Way of Wine Country Board. My guest this morning is Rafael Gaetan from Aguilar Tile Installation.
Ryan Stiles, England Volkers Real Estate and Yachting.
Don Mills, Cuvée.
David Brown, Adobe Associates.
David De Los Santos with TLCD Architecture.
Peter Asmus, I'm a guest. Todd got me here, so I am with Pathfinder Communications and Renewable America.
Marcus Navarra, 707 Promotions, and my guest today is Brian Canepa with W-Trans.
Kyle Betancourt, ZFA Structural Engineers.
Jeff Rowland, B&L Glass.
Janet Connor, Summit State Bank and past president.
Kevin C., CPA.
Justin Hunter, Holly Construction.
All right, so if you're a guest, I'm starting from the back of the room. Just hold up that business card and I'll come around and grab it. And we've got some beer waiting for someone. Anyone else? Oh, we got some over here. Thank you. Thank you. There should be a few at this table. I'll come back around. Thanks, perfect. We got some flower pickers. Here we go. No folding tags on these things, no cheating. All right, Hugh, get your picking finger ready because you're gonna be the one picking the winner. All righty. Do we have them all? Fabulous. All right. Hugh, will you do the honor? All right, no looking. No looking.
We have Steve Bertelbaum right there. And we have Andrea D'Angelo.
All right, to the front with you. We got some beer. Leslie.
Because what sounds better in the morning than alcohol?
You gotta drink it before. Here we go.
Thank you, Don. All right, so here's how the rest of the morning is gonna roll on. We are going to have Scott, and then Hugh, and then Gabe all come up one at a time and give us some remarks. And then we're gonna have our friend Lisa come up and do a moderated panel. So let's get this party started. Our first presenter is Scott Orr, the new Director of Permits Sonoma. Scott has spent nearly a decade with the department, starting as an entry-level planner and working his way up through the planning division to become Deputy Director in 2020. He stepped in as interim director this summer and was ultimately selected to lead the agency after a nationwide search. That's pretty cool. Scott holds a master's in city and regional planning from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo and a degree in environmental studies from UC Santa Barbara. Please help me welcome to the stage, Scott Orr.
So I know it's everybody's favorite time when the planner starts talking in the room. So thank you for hosting me. Truly it's been so wonderful hearing from so many people in this room and really realizing how many people I've had a chance to work with in the last decade. So thank you all for the correspondence, particularly over the last month, and so much coffee. Everybody has learned that the way to my heart and to have a conversation is by having coffee. So in the, one thing that really resonated me with the video that we saw was the, oh shit, people in this room do a lot of good work and care a lot about Sonoma County. And this is a great forum for me to also kind of invite everybody to really participate in our general plan update process, because you're all thinking about the next 50 years, and like, what a good timing. Like, we are now in the process to be changing the rules for the next 50 years. And I'd say in the last 50 years, we've done a really good job of making everything more complicated, more challenging, more expensive, and more time consuming. And we know that everything is going to continue to get more expensive in the world and always be complicated, but this is really our opportunity to take a look at the things we've done in the last, I'd say really 30 years, and start making it easier to understand and giving more clarity. We know there's always going to be wicked problems that we can't solve, but by chipping away the things that we've made difficult, like for example, next week, actually 2 weeks from today at the board, we will be kind of changing our fence regulations, which sounds totally mundane. But in the county, if you want to put up a fence taller than 3.5 feet, we're talking public hearing, use permit process, potentially secret. So, to me, it's a great example of something that, maybe made sense at the time, but, we've got bigger problems to deal with, not only for our staff, our, construction industry, and also our, elected officials and commissioners. So, by shifting things like that is how we can speed up the process for everything else. So that's really going to be my focus in the next year, is really identifying those things that, again, made sense maybe 30 years ago, but we really need to be, kind of making it easier for people to understand timing and, to plan their lives accordingly and not be going to public hearings for fences. So, another thing that I'm really going to be focused on in the next year is updates to our legal non-conforming code, which also hasn't been updated since the 80s, maybe earlier, but the records have been lost to time. They primarily came into existence because billboards were public enemy number one. But what we've really seen coming out of fires and floods and pandemics is it's so hard to develop already that when something exists, someone put the time and effort into creating something, that a disaster shouldn't make it go away. And so providing more clarity into that process, again, is, it's mundane work, updating code, but that's where we're at. And the things that can make the most difference is that kind of no glory, boring work. So that's really gonna be the focus for me in the next year. I'm gonna channel Lisa and not talk too long up here, because I know we have panel time, and I'm sure there may be some questions at the end. So I'm gonna leave it there. Thank you again so much for the invite, and looking forward to the questions and answer portion.
All right, as promised, next up we have Hugh Futrell. Hugh is the Chief Executive Officer and co-shareholder of Hugh Futrell Corporation. Educated at the University of California and a native-born Santa Rosan, Futrell has been working in land use planning, development and construction, and asset management since 1979. As a principal since 1983. His firm has developed and constructed more than 50 development projects, including single-family, master-planned communities, market-rate multifamily, lower income, commercial and mid-rise mixed-use projects, historic rehabilitation, hotels, and healthcare facilities. That's a big resume. Futrell served as chairperson of the Santa Rosa Redevelopment Agency, of the Santa Rosa Housing Authority, 3 terms as president of the Santa Rosa City School Board, chairperson of the Mobile Home Advisory Committee for the city, and member of numerous community organizations and local government committees, including board member for the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber. He is currently vice chair of the Public Financing Authority, a joint powers agency of the city and county, and is a board member and past chair of the Downtown Action Organization. Futrell is a member of the Urban Land and Design Build Institute. He is a licensed California general contractor and real estate broker. Please help me in welcoming Hugh Futrell to the stage.
Well, I too will try to be brisk. I have a few observations. Given the resume that was read out, I think a synonym for that is that I am a little bit on the old side, actually. In fact, it was 47 years ago, it will be 47 years ago this coming June when I made the first presentation I ever made to the Santa Rosa City Council. And as odd as it sounds, as unlikely as it sounds, because I'm not quite that old, 56 years ago that I made the first presentation I ever made to the Sonoma County Board of Supervisors. I have to point out that neither presentation went all that terribly well. But again, some quick observations. One is that the political environment for housing production has changed dramatically in our region, in the state, over the past decade and 15 years. That has been partly because the state has force-fed demanding statutes on the local jurisdictions to improve housing production. But it's also been true that a number of jurisdictions, including Santa Rosa, for example, have been far ahead of that curve. Gabe Osborne and his team and his predecessors did an excellent job, and the political leadership of Santa Rosa supported that in incentivizing core area development, affordable housing development, and trying also to simplify the rules on development outside of the city. And the result of that is that after a long, long period of housing production languishing in central Sonoma County, there's been some reversal of that in a limited but real way. And I think that that's important. At the state level, the decision to make major CEQA reform after not just years, but decades of trying to improve the CEQA process has had an immense potential future impact on housing production. State legislature and the governor, whatever one may think of them on other issues, and there's a mixed bag for sure, did a remarkable job there. And I think that that would pay off in the future. Now, land use is so intimately connected to politics that we have to point out that in the end, without political leadership on these kinds of issues, there isn't progress. And when I talk about politics intersecting with land use, I'm not talking about backroom deals. There's a general view, I know, in land use that a lot of backroom deals happen. In our region, in our area, that doesn't happen. It's fundamentally an open and largely transparent process. The community as a whole and the electorate has come to understand how important housing is, and in part is a generational thing. In part, people are conscious that, for example, home ownership between the ages of 35 and 44 in our county has dropped from somewhere around 70% a generation ago to just about half now and dropping further. These are factors that people have been conscious of. That's not to say there's not zip code NIMBYism to some degree. Of course, it still exists, and it'll continue to exist forever. And sometimes those reservations about specific development projects are well taken, sometimes not. But the fact is that political leadership in fits and starts has responded to the consciousness that we need housing production for ourselves and for the community that comes after us. Now, I want to mention a couple chilling facts here, though, because they need to be mentioned. And Professor Eiler may dwell on some of these things next month. From 1990 to 2000, Sonoma County generated 51,000 net new jobs. Big impact on housing demand, of course. In the 25 years since then, Sonoma County has lost 7,000 jobs. The civilian labor force in Sonoma County in that recent period has dropped by almost 15,000 people available to the workforce. So when we talk about a respectable 4.5% unemployment rate today, that's deceptive. Job generation is the single most important factor of how every one of our businesses will flourish in the future. How they flourish now what our risks are, what our problems are, how the tax base is affected. And we have been stuttering for a long time, in part supported by the vast amount of capital in our area, in 401ks and elsewhere, that's helped maintain consumption. But when you look further ahead, in the end, communities that languish in employment generation inevitably go into terminal decline. And we see it in many places. We need to be conscious of that. The Alliance needs to be conscious of it. Individually, we need to be conscious of it. When we look at the various construction segments that exist today, nearly every one is under significant stress. I won't go into all those details. Most of us are doing well here. Most of us are reasonably prosperous. But the long-term signs are difficult. Culturally and economically, when it comes to the great mantra of economic development, we need to be looking at this big picture. Now, I would add one other thing before I'm done. I don't want to seem negative, because we always need to be motivated above all by hopes and not by fears. That's an absolute fact. And that's public education and its impact on economic development, on housing demand, and on housing production. We have some real problems here. We have a very, very good Santa Rosa City School Board member in this audience who knows what I'm talking about. But nonetheless, for far too many years, leadership in the majority of our local districts, but particularly in the ones in Central Sonoma County and Santa Rosa City Schools, have not done the job. When people make decisions on major capital investment, they still look at what is the quality of the schools. When families decide whether to locate here, they still think about the schools. And we've got a problem there, and that's part of the entirety, I guess, of the context that we need to think about. So, my message, I guess, as an organization is, many wonderful things have happened here. There are many critical things yet to do. We face incredibly important challenges, but we have a record of solving problems, and we need always to remember that. Thank you.
I almost just said I could listen to him talk all day, but we're about to listen to him talk more, so that's great. Okay, I want to introduce Gabe Osborne to you all. He currently serves as the director of the City of Santa Rosa's Planning and Economic Development Department, where he has spearheaded the creation and execution of pivotal programs and services crucial to the city's objectives. His 29 years of experience at the city have involved fostering collaboration with the development community, harmonizing policies and practices to drive holistic and sustainable land development. Please help me welcome Gabe Osborne.
Well, good morning, everyone, and it's always a pleasure to be here. I will first cover, Scott and I are not related. People normally see your bearded gingers and think we are. And oddly enough, looking at that picture, I think if you merged Scott and Hugh, you would create me. So it is interesting. But I appreciate the partnership with Permit Sonoma. We work together collaboratively on a lot of issues to try to create alignment. I think Scott's going to do a fabulous job in his role. With Hugh, I've worked with Hugh for 20 years of my career. I've always appreciated what Hugh's been able to do for the community from a development standpoint and how he's carried himself with working with staff. So I really appreciate being part of this panel. I've been covering the director role for about 2 years now. So when I came aboard in Santa Rosa, there was a bit of a leadership change. And what I found to be important in permitting is culture. You have to set a culture of creativity, and you have to set a culture that focuses around a mission. When you are in an agency that regulates, people want to be regulators. And the problem that can create is you can lose sight of what the mission is. So the term often gets used as get to yes. And I think part of the challenge is from a regulator standpoint, you can't always get to yes. So the concept should be partnering. The concept should be understanding the mission. The concept should be understanding that permitting is economic development. Behind every single permit that's issued, you're creating jobs, you're generating sales tax, you're allowing the community to flourish. So what I've tried to instill in the team is really just changing the culture of what you're trying to do. You are a regulator, but you're also a facilitator. So how can you move things forward? Now, once you do that, it gets into how do you make permits go faster. So year 1 was culture, year 2 is making things go faster. So really what we're looking at from a department standpoint, similar to what Scott's looking at, is how can you get into some of your aging code. We are currently taking a heavy look at our use permit process to try to figure out how we can facilitate the quick re-tenanting of buildings through the use permit process. Many years, local jurisdictions have got into heavily regulating process, and the state hasn't helped in a lot of situations. There's quite a bit of regulation we have to enforce. So how do you start stripping that back to facilitate and move processes forward? I always use the Tubbs Fire as a good example. That was when the community came together, we partnered, and we generated results that haven't been seen anywhere else. How do we mimic that in regular day-to-day business? Santa Rosa has pushed out quite a few housing units. We have 1,300 in the mix. We're going to generate over 1,000 new housing units this year, which that's one of our highest totals since I've been in land development, which is 23 years now in the city of Santa Rosa. So we're seeing quite a few strides there. We are looking at refocusing our economic development strategy. How do you get down to more of a core business attraction, retention, expansion? Understanding the importance of sales tax in the community, understanding the importance of supporting not only the small business segment that's local to the city that creates the fabric, but also understanding the relationship and the benefit that the larger retailers have. So we're looking at reforming that. So I think as we look into the next few years, what you can look at, because I will keep this brief, I know we'll go through a lot of the details, is the culture is important and the partnership is important. You all play a critical role in moving this forward. We are not necessarily the subject matter experts on the city side in all this. And if we come to the table understanding what the city and staff is under, and we can understand what you're under, we usually create a pretty good model that comes out of that, and it produces amazing things. And I think we have really good roadmaps of seeing that happen. So moving forward, that's the task we're going to take at the City of Santa Rosa. I'm happy to hear any ideas after this on how we can be better. I'm always looking at opportunities for that. And I think what you do is you say you've created code, you can recreate the code. And it takes the little bit of the pressure off of it. Oftentimes I know it's difficult and it doesn't always happen as quick as people want it to, but if we're progressively moving in that fashion, we're going in the right direction. So I'll leave it with that. Culture, creativity, and permitting is economic development.
Gabe, don't get too comfortable. You're about to come back up. Scott, Hugh, and Gabe, will you guys come up to the stage? And Lisa, thank you for moderating this panel from the North Coast Builders Exchange. You're awesome.
Are we one?
They're chatting. So very quickly, I would like to say that not only are these three in their roles, they are also supported and do what they say they're going to do. We have been supported from the County of Sonoma, City of Santa Rosa, and Workforce Development, so they understand that really to do what they have to do, we need workers. And Hugh, of course, has been a long-time member, so I appreciate all three of you for those reasons. So Scott, brand new in your role. You talked about it a little bit from stage, but tell us, like in your first days and weeks, what stands out the most? And you talked about the opportunities, but we want you to dish a little bit about being the new Permit Sonoma director.
Thank you. And until Gabe pointed out, I really didn't understand the transition photo, but now I just can't stop thinking about it. So if I'm a little shaken, that's why. So yeah, you know, I alluded to it, but being the director, it's not something that I anticipated, but I'm so excited at the opportunity. So I've had this conversation with a number of you over the years. I really strive to solve puzzles. Like that's what motivates me. That's what keeps me going. And as I moved up through Permit Sonoma, it's like, if I just moved up one more time, then I can solve one of the puzzles that's in front of me. So during my 2 years as an assistant director, There was just more things as I was getting more into the, building and engineering and fire prevention and code enforcement and natural resource side of things. It's like, oh man, there's a whole bunch more puzzles that I can't quite solve. But, making this jump to director, I do feel that I have now the ability to really work across all of those divisions and solve some of the issues that, again, kind of building off what Gabe said, the culture aspect. So for me, I always had the best working relationship, particularly when I was doing permits, of having that open human-to-human communication with the applicant and understanding like what are your deadlines? Like, do you have like funding tied up with making sure this gets through in a year and a half or by June 30th? And being on the same page in terms of timing. And that's not something that I think people come into government work with an understanding of that. People on the other side, like nobody wants to get a permit, but they have to get a permit, and we're the only game in town. So, working with them as people is something that we do need to teach folks. And I think that that's an area where we've done a lot of growth, but we could do a lot better. And to the idea of getting to yes, to me it's about understanding what someone wants to do and being able to have that conversation of, all right, well, if you want to do exactly what you're saying, we're really talking, 2 years, we might have to go to the board. But if you modify it just slightly and maybe, think about it another way, you could actually do that by right or in 6 months, through a different process. And, if that's successful, then you can think about what's next and, kind of building on it rather than going for everything from the start with the big process. So that is really what I'm trying to inspire in our folks at the county that maybe haven't traditionally thought that way. And it's that, being engaged, like normal people work for the county, normal people come to the county as customers, and having that connection and really understanding what everyone's goals are and helping people through the process. So
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Yep, thank you. Hugh, so this has been very positive, but we all know that there's always these local stories of the nightmare about how long some things took. So, but from your experience in the development community, Hugh, what are the biggest challenges builders face from concept to completion in Sonoma County?
Well, I think you have to start with the fact that the cost of production is higher than the cost of valuation when you're done in many, many cases. So before you can even get off the starting mark, you've got a problem. And that's something that has evolved year by year over time. And that's an inflation aspect. It's also an interest rate. Higher interest rates not only result in higher debt service, higher interest costs, but they also suppress the value of the income stream of income producing assets. And that creates a significant problem because the production costs have not gone down. So that's, you have to start there. Secondly, and this is something I think, and this is something I know, Lisa, that you're very conscious of and members are very conscious of. It was possible to produce 2,500 housing units a year in the 80s, 1,500 to 1,800 sometimes in the 90s. We do not have the subcontractor and general contractor base to hit those levels of production even if it were available. And that's because the number of people coming into the trades is shrinking. The subcontractor base is changing. So that's a problem. It's a nationwide problem to some degree, by the way, but it's definitely a problem. When it comes to entitlements, if you do the job right, are fundamentally not really a problem if you just understand the rules. But permitting does sometimes take still too long. And I'm not saying anything that the administrative leadership of many jurisdictions are not aware of. There are still things that can be done to expedite that. And it's also true that when it comes to some things on the entitlement side, the proliferation of unnecessary use permits, which Gabe, I think, touched on, is a factor. Anything that can simplify. The zoning code, when I started, in Santa Rosa was about 45, 50 pages long. Now when you add in everything, it is probably 4.5 times that long, I would say, something like that. And every provision has a meaning, but sometimes it's unnecessary. So sequence of challenges, fundamentally.
And working on it, I took this job 4 years ago, and nationally they were saying for every 5 people leaving the industry, there was only 1 coming in. The new word is 7. So for every 7 retiring and leaving the industry, there's only 1 coming in. We work on that in a workforce way, but it's very difficult. So there's a lot of education in my mind that needs to be done through all of our schools about what, this is my platform, so I'm saying it, that what really needs to be done, and what an amazing industry that planning and building and construction is, because it is a way of life and a great quality of way of life, especially locally here. So thank you for even bringing that up, because I can't help myself. So Gabe, in a big growth moment, what trends should local businesses be paying attention to heading into 26?
Yeah, so we have actually had significant growth on the housing side over the last few years, and I know many of you in this room that are in that business have seen that. There was a lot of funding that flowed to market rate and affordable multifamily housing projects. We're still building single family. There's been a lot of that stock that's actually in the system going through right now. From a pipeline standpoint, what we monitor is what's coming through entitlement, because that's the next round of development. And typically we run on 10-year cycles where it slows and speeds up. As what we're seeing right now is not a lot going through entitlement. And I think that there's a lot of things that are factoring into that. It's the cost of construction, it's understanding how projects are going to be funded. We are actually seeing a number of smaller projects that are able to take advantage of some of the state legislative measures that simplify and make things more by right. So there's a number of developments, as Hugh mentioned in his brief intro, addressing the CEQA process. There's a lot of things moving on that front, but there's not nearly as much as what there was in previous years. So what we look at in that particular case is how can we get the pipeline going again? What can we do to support it? What's getting in the way of that? What can we do from a policy standpoint to address it? I think on the housing side, it's important to develop a housing strategy around problem statements. We've built a lot of affordable housing, we've built a lot of deed-restricted affordable housing, and we have a lot of market rate housing. There's not much in the middle. And for those of you that have younger children, you know, how do they envision home ownership in the next 10 years? It's very difficult in Sonoma County. So if we start with a problem statement of how do we let our younger generation purchase real estate in Sonoma County, what does a policy around that problem statement look like? Because it's more incentivizing affordable by design, it's looking at more creative development types. I think it's really important from a housing strategy to look at that. Deed-restricted affordable housing is great, but you're putting people in a situation where they can't make more money, and if they do, they potentially can lose their housing. So that becomes a problem. We have to figure out the middle. So that's very much a focus. On the economic development side, we have shifted a lot of our strategy to business support and understanding sales tax dollars that are leaking out of our community and being spent in other communities. How can we keep them here? And what are some of the trends that cause that to happen? And it's a very interesting analysis when you do a leakage study. There are mobile analytics, there's cell phone data that can be tracked, there's a lot of information that can be pulled up from consumers to understand where they're going, how they're spending their money, and why. And usually what it runs into is that, for example, my wife loves home goods. I can't stand going in there because I am not a shopper, but she loves home goods. Home goods takes you out of the network. And when you're at Home Goods, then there's a lot of shopping that's done from a convenience standpoint. As humans, and this is really why Trader Joe's, a lot of jurisdictions try to get Trader Joe's. It brings people in. Trader Joe's does not have a lot of taxable goods, but when you're at Trader Joe's, where else are you shopping? So our leakage analysis, by no means is this an exact number, it was looking at almost $1 billion leaving the market. And out of that $1 billion was $500 million in sales in food and beverage. So what are the 3 things generally people do each day? So what we're really trying to do is target those markets to keep people in the market or the trade area and try to support our businesses. But what are some of the businesses that are more destination? Why do you leave the market? And understanding that strategy, I think, is really important from an economic development standpoint. So we're putting a lot of focus into that.
Thank you. I just love the connection always around what permitting and building houses and how it is economic development. And we are happy to, I know we've got elected officials in the audience, and the news is elected officials that are here are probably the ones that already get it, right? They're showing up. So we appreciate you if you're here, but also doing that education is so important, connecting those dots, especially around budget time, if they start to mess with planning and building, in my mind. So I know you've seen all the questions, but as a little bit of a policy wonk, I can't help myself. I'm going to ask all three of you, because this is one question we could not run out of time on, because I can't wait to hear. If you could change one state level regulation to improve local development or business vitality, what would you do? Which one would it be? So I cannot help it to ask that question from all three of you and see if there's one state level regulation.
For me, and this is coming from an unincorporated county perspective, it is the applicability of categorical exemptions under CEQA are often specifically for incorporated communities. So, there's been a lot of talk about CEQA reform, which is great and needed, but on the county side, we can't always take advantage of it. There has been some broadening of infill exemptions, but again, it's still very city focused.
Would you explain, some of the really blessed people in the audience that don't have to deal with categorical exemptions and CEQA, what you're talking about, because I think that would be important.
Sure. Sorry. So when someone is coming through for a permit that is going through a discretionary process, meaning it's more than just check the boxes, you get to build your house. It's, we not only need you to check all the boxes, but we need, a biological study, possibly a hydrogeologic study. We go through the full environmental review process. And we do have things that don't fit into any of these, kind of predefined categories by the state that says, hey, if you're doing one of these, you don't have to go through that full analysis because, in our experience, there's not environmental impacts. If we can't fit into one of those predefined categories, we're doing usually a 50 to 100 page document that's often based on 200 to 1,000 pages of technical studies and things like that, where we're basically getting to the conclusion, hey, this project is not going to have a significant environmental impact. And there are absolutely projects that do have the potential, but the vast majority of them end up being what's called a negative declaration, where we're saying, hey, this project is not going to have an impact, or a mitigated negative declaration, where we're saying, hey, if you do these pre-construction surveys, if you do some water monitoring, then there won't be any impacts. The difference in time between those two projects is probably a year and a half in most cases. And that's provided there isn't some unforeseen thing that happens. And most of the time, we end up at an end result that's exactly the same. So,
well, a year and a half, and then you might miss a season. So, right, then it's 2 years or whatever. It really is so challenging. Right.
But the rules might change.
Yeah, you did a great job explaining that. But anyway, Gabe.
Yeah, and it's really hard not to mention exactly what Scott mentioned, because CEQA can add a significant amount of cost and time to a project, and all of a sudden it does not pencil based on the CEQA strategy associated with that project. And the state has really done quite a bit of work to try to find exemptions and carve-outs, and as a local jurisdiction, we benefit more than the county because it really focuses on more of the infill. It's been a lot around housing, which is great. It has not been a lot around commercial development. So from an economic development standpoint, it becomes a little more challenging. So broadening that out, I think, is really important. I think an interesting piece that the state has been playing around with too, and this really came out of, it happened before, but it gained some traction and some press around the fire recovery down south, is self-certification on building permit processes. So local jurisdictions always deal with constraints from a staffing standpoint. So depending on the number of permits we get, it will dramatically influence the turnaround time. And as Hugh mentioned, things take too long, and we do agree. But to shrink that down, oftentimes we have to be creative and utilize the design professionals in a way that they're licensed to do. So we're starting to see the state play around with more of a requirement for self-certification, which oftentimes those help us. By the state actually forcing the jurisdiction to make changes, it allows us to institutionalize that change, but then also expand on it. So those are areas that I think can help, but I think as far as where the state can make the biggest impact, it's likely on the CEQA front.
Affordable housing. State's done a lot of good stuff, but there's some stuff that isn't handled well. The bulk of low-income, regulated, new production housing is financed through a combination of equity raised from corporations relying on tax credits, and gaps then filled particularly by local government, but also by state government. Although the federal tax credits are the big critical factor in this, those credits are allocated through the state through a plan that gives various points and competitive preferences to developers and to regions. We come up a little short here in this region, and having a little more play in the joints would be good. But more than that, the regulations at the state level drive up costs for affordable housing very significantly. So on the one hand, it's a great system to deliver dollars for affordable housing. Paul and others out there, Burbank Housing, I mean, you live and die on those tax credits for new production. But you also have to deal with much higher costs because the point system forces projects to spend money in certain ways. It does other things which aren't ideal. That system can be rationalized. And the result is that those tax credits which are financed and which are a fixed number can generate a lot more units through a process of rationalization, and that would be good.
Thank you very much. Gabe, how is the city approaching the balance between housing, infrastructure, overall economic development? How are you finding that balance, and where do you see the best opportunities for the business community?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think when you layer those three things together, oftentimes we talk about building housing, but how are you building communities? Because communities have all three of those things, and they all have to really work together well. And there's been such a big push on the housing front, and we've pushed a lot of units out. Sometimes the infrastructure lags. And I think right now our Transportation and Public Works Department is doing a fabulous job of moving capital projects. We've seen the grand opening of our Fire Station 5. We've seen the groundbreaking on our Herd Community Hub. We're seeing more utility work. The bike and ped overcrossing by the JC in Cottingtown is moving forward. So you're starting to see more of those infrastructure projects roll out, which are really critical to that aspect. Really, how does economic development layer onto that? Now, I've been with the city for 29 years. I've seen different economic development strategies, and it really depends where you focus your time. Economic development is almost everything, and you can look at infrastructure projects being economic development. Like I said, permitting is. So it's really this overarching concept. But where are you really going to focus, and where are you going to place that on? And I think that there is an importance of upstream investment, workforce development, making sure we have the labor that we need here that's educated and can do what we need them to do. That's a really important piece. But there's also the sales tax piece of it. As local jurisdictions get into structural deficits, and it's really a problem throughout the state of California, with really expenditures increasing above what revenues are producing, sales tax and those revenue measures become very important to focus on. So I think when we look at where we are with an economic development strategy, it's focusing on, and it really is part of our 2050 general plan, we adopted that this year, is looking at how we can focus on business attraction and retention. How can we develop the support services that we need to allow our small business community to flourish? The small business community is destination. A lot of times that will bring people in because there is a uniqueness to it. National retailers are important. When you look at how much money is being spent on consuming chicken, it's pretty amazing. Between Chick-fil-A and Raising Cane's, it is pretty amazing. It's staggering. So a lot of jurisdictions really get into a bit of this focus on trying to attract the national retailers. And I need to get a Chick-fil-A, or we need to get a Topgolf. Well, at the end of the day, from a tax measure standpoint, sales tax, if you have a significant structural deficit that's over 10 million, that's like 8 Costco's. So you really can't solve that with one business. You have to let the overall system rise. So all boats have to rise as part of that. So the economic development strategy has to be overarching and make sure everything is supported. And as I mentioned before, it's really keeping the sales dollars in the trade market, and how can we focus on ensuring that that happens. And it's not an easy problem to solve, and it's very much based on human dynamics, so it's understanding what the consumer is doing. But I think to Lisa's question, that really the importance is oftentimes we'll focus on one of the three very heavily, and we'll get behind on the other two. And it really is important on how you're intersecting all three of those and building out your community, which is really what the focus of our general plan is looking at. It had a heavy focus on economic development because of all the housing in previous years. It was very heavy in one of those three pillars. So I think that document really helps us, but it's how you take that document that wants to really sit on the shelf and you put it into practice, and that's the challenge. So from dealing with an economic development strat plan, from a development services strat plan, we're really looking at a 5-year approach that tries to really tie all this together so we're not getting behind.
Awesome. We have other questions, but we do want to hear from all of you, and I think it's important. I mean, you've been very patient, and we're going to take questions, but the three of you, thank you so much, because it didn't even come up that there was like new FEMA maps. Right? There's all these other things that go into what we're talking about today, and then there's layers and layers that kind of keep coming up, I guess, as we go forward. And so trying to maneuver all of those for all of you, not to mention little animals that run around you have to watch for, right? So there's all kinds of things that we didn't even get to today that are challenges in these processes to get things built. So Ty?
All right, questions from the audience?
So CEQA and NEPA hasn't come up so much, but CEQA certainly has, and I've done a lot of that work. I was going to ask a question is, when we, the people, and our elected representatives adopt a new ordinance or code or whatever, is any consideration given to the impact on your staffing needs and the cost of development? And turning that back on its head, both of you have talked about streamlining some of the codes, so you can look at it in reverse. If we remove this code, simplify this code, how will that make our processes more efficient, reduce our staffing needs, help permits move more rapidly? So, Mike, I guess I would put that as a question. When we do adopt new ordinances and codes, is any consideration given to the regulatory impact analysis to turn environmental impact analysis on its head?
Well, I'll start since I'm holding the mic. Absolutely. This is maybe a secret that I'm going to share with everybody, but we have more work than our staff can work on. So the first thing that I think about with any ordinance update is, what is this going to mean for workload management? Usually ordinance updates means we are going to be doing something that we haven't done before, at least historically, where there will be additional work that has to happen. But we're also, at an interesting time, and I'm going to use our FEMA grants program as an example. While we still have one, because in the last year we lost $50 million in our Building Resilient Communities grant, which means that that's work that we can't do anymore because there isn't a secret pot of $50 million to do vegetation management and home hardening and all that. So the kind of economic climate that we exist in is one where there's not going to be additional resources. So the ordinance updates that we really need to be moving forward and pushing on is entirely in that discussion of how do we do better utilize our resources with the code updates. And I'll pass it over to Gabe.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point because I think that gets into some of the challenges with resource deployment. That if we, to Hugh's standpoint, if we overhaul the zoning code, how long would that take? Significant lift, and if staff's doing that, they're not doing something else. So what we really do is, what is the return on investment in reviewing that ordinance? And it can be a variety of different things. So our council sets goals, and we align our work plan around those goals. So we'll have economic development and housing strategies. So it may very well be that it's not efficiency, but it actually results in increases in economic development or producing housing. What we will do really at the staff level is we look at it exactly like that. So if we have a code section that is getting in our way and is problematic and is adding X number of hours to the review and is not legally mandated, that's an efficiency process. So when we take the efficiency look at it, that's exactly the exercise we go at, and the code sections that will add more hours to the pool that allow the team to work on more will get priority over that. One of the exercises that Lisa and I are working on too is understanding between the two teams what is really just getting in the way. What is problematic on the developer side? Because it's important to note it's not just efficiency on our side, it's also efficiency on the applicant side. When is it adding money, when is it adding time, and is it needed? And for us to better understand the impacts, and if we change it, how are we adding time over there? That's an important part to the equation as well.
I have a question for, oh, I'm sorry, you.
I'll just add very quickly that people who are elected want to accomplish things. They don't necessarily exercise because, like all of us, they're human. The self-discipline of saying, I can't bring that up because there's not enough people to do the work. And if you've got a 7-member council in a given 12-month period, every one of those council members may have 2 or 3 things that really, really matter to them. That's 20 things that suddenly come up that you're not staffed for. And then you got to deal with it, and the complications can be big. And that's really one of the big differences, I think, that's happened over the last generation. The sheer amount of expectation of what should be done.
So Gabe, I wanted to ask you to comment on the relationship of the state's role and impact on the planning process and the mandates that come from the state that may or may not be funded by the state, but yet you have to execute. And related to that is another part of a conversation we had recently about the impact of place of origin of sale, quote unquote, Amazon, and the impact on sales leakage or sales tax leakage.
Yeah, absolutely. So, really what the state has been doing is fairly aggressively from a legislation standpoint, changing local process. And we've seen it from a CEQA exemption standpoint, but it's also getting into thou shalt change how you review things. And it really has started with shot clocks. So the cities, local jurisdictions are required to respond to certain application types within 30 or 60 days. And it started with certain housing types. ADUs were the most common. It's expanded out to most new housing, and it's now expanding out to the commercial side. And really the way the state looks at that is that it does not have to be a funded mandate because local jurisdictions collect fees for that. The challenge local jurisdictions run into is how do they deploy the fees to cover that responsibility. So historically it's always been done by permanent staff, and you can imagine you cannot staff up that quick. If I receive 100 applications tomorrow, how do I process those 100 applications within 30 days? The financial mechanism to staff up is not that easy. So basically what jurisdictions are leaning into is professional services, using consultants, figuring out relief valves to do it. I think that is all good because it gives us deadlines, but right now most jurisdictions are stuck in how in the heck can we manage these shot clocks. So there's a learning curve that everyone's going through with that. So it's a bit of a challenge. On the sales tax leakage, that's the Amazon story. Generally the way it works under Bradley Burns law, the amount of sales tax that we get, the 1% out of the state's base, that is really point of sale. Amazon for the longest time, back when the internet was new, and I think many of you remember, you did not pay sales tax on certain things unless it was coming out of California. Amazon had some interesting relationships where Amazon was processing sales outside of the states, and then they brought in all their distribution centers under the business name, and they started processing in their fulfillment centers. So what that does is it keeps the sales tax dollars, that 1% of the Bradley Burns that local jurisdictions normally get, it keeps it at the point of sale location. So the fulfillment centers benefit from that. So those sales tax dollars would normally come to us. The cities generally of the sales tax you would pay here if it was fully taxable transaction is around 1.75 is what we get out of the total sales tax, with the 1% being Bradley Burns, the rest being the district add-ons that we put onto the sales tax. But there's a lot of discussion right now at the state level and all of the cities about how that distribution from the fulfillment centers can work out in a more equitable way, where the delivery address is actually looked at it, not the point of sale. But that is really a challenge with online sales and just how Amazon has dominated that market in many ways. And they probably have the biggest impact because of their high level of presence in California. Those online sales are more favorable to the local jurisdictions when they occur out of state because that funnels back through. It's really just when those transactions occur within the state of California.
Just a quick thanks to Ryan and Ty for putting this panel together. This has been fantastic. And Gabe, you're a star for Santa Rosa. Thanks for all the work you're doing. To Hugh's point about the pet projects of local elected officials, I just wanted to, and I think Gabe will concur, I don't think we saw that many of those in Santa Rosa this year. Perhaps local elected officials are learning their lesson. So, Gabe, would you concur?
I concur.
Do we have time for one more, Ryan? A quick one. Is there one more? All right, we got one up here, the quicker hand. A long walk, but a quick hand. Here we go.
Quick one. We talked about building and development and getting to the point where we're constructing. So my question is to both county and city. The city's been, we call for inspection, and you're 2 weeks out. The county last week was 1 week out. How can we fix this?
Yeah, I can add. So basically from an inspection turnaround time, we go from 48 hours up to 2 weeks. And that's really based on the demand of inspections. And this was the point I was making earlier, that it's very difficult to staff up. What we're looking at is supporting or encouraging or even requiring more remote inspections for certain things. So I can actually double the amount of inspections that an inspector can do remotely because you're taking travel time out of it. So that helps, but I think one of the pieces that we're really focusing on is exactly that. That is very disruptive to business operations. So how can we maintain continuity in services when the demand on inspections or permitting can dramatically increase? And then obviously if you have 5 inspectors, at some point they're going to take holidays, they're going to take time off, and that then affects that. But that is an excellent point, and I think that just requires a more creative financial strategy to figure out how it handles and to leverage technology and alternate means for performing inspections.
Ditto. But also, on the county side, we have really 2 main inspection units. There's the building side of things, and then there's also the engineering. The building unit has been well staffed and solid for a while now, but on the engineering side, we went through a full turnover in the last year. So the expectations around timing should be improving because we now have, it's fully staffed. Weathering kind of the budget cycle last year, we did have to keep a couple of the positions vacant until July 1st. So now those are filled and we're focused on training and also better integrating the various inspections that need to happen so that we can do more in a day. And to expand on the ditto, the remote inspections I think is going to be a key aspect. I mean, the county is big. Doing an inspection up at the Sea Ranch or Annapolis or down at the county line south of Petaluma, I mean, you factor in all those travel times and that's time that is not spent inspecting. So we need to do better about how we're doing routing because to me there's really 3 main interactions for Permit Sonoma and the public. It's people who are coming in for a permit, people who didn't get a permit and are coming to talk to us about it, and then also the inspections of, hey, you finished building something, now we're making sure that everything is lining up at the end. And to me, the inspection aspect is the most time sensitive and needs to be a priority in terms of how we're looking to better our organization and working with the development community.
Real quick before Lisa runs away, let's give Lisa a little round of applause. Thank you, Lisa. And really, thank you guys for taking time out of your morning to be here to educate us, to care about our business community, our county, and our cities. Thank you guys for being here. One last round of applause for our guests. And don't go anywhere. We need a couple photos with you, so just stay put. Okay. The QR codes that are on your tables, you guys, board applications are due. Some of you have been asked to please join and fill them out. So please fill them out today, get them in. Listen, some of y'all love to come to the game, but not join the team. You guys, it's December. If you're planning on coming next year and you think these membership meetings are valuable, educational, and resourceful for you, please join the team. Because as the team gets bigger, the team gets stronger. And as we get stronger, the community does better. So join the team. If you click on the prepaid program QR code, and you're not a member, you can just click on the menu, click on the page that says Become a Member, and check it out. Please join the team. Also, scan the QR code for all you members out there that says Member Survey. And you don't have to fill it out right now, but scan it, click it, put it in your phone, and then when you get to the office, it's 4 questions. But we are only as strong as you. We want to know what you think, what you feel, what you want, what you don't want. Okay. Another congratulations to Dennis Harder for your Legacy Award. Well done. Absolutely. And then if you thought this was good and you care about the economy locally in Sonoma County, our region of Northern California, our state, our country, and our global economics, be here on January 7th and don't miss out. Guys, from the Kelly family to all of you, happy holidays and Merry Christmas.